I'm going over like 5-ish ways of how to get paid to speak and why you should be asking for compensation for your thought leadership, and then also talking about the Monetize Your Genius Challenge. And so I get asked this question a lot, right? How to get paid to speak. It is an industry that has done amazing things for myself and my family and people that I know. But it's always this thing of like people not fully understanding the value of being a communicator, and understanding that communication is within the top 2 levels of the 4 levels of value, right? And so, but I know the nitty gritty is like, how do you get paid to speak? Why you should be asking for compensation, and compensation in speaking comes in a number of forms. And so in the 30 minutes I have before my next meeting, I wanted to go through that and then answer some questions, right? And so when you talk about getting paid to speak, you got to first know your intentions around it. Like, why do you want to speak, and what does it afford me? What can it afford me? And in what way do I need to be paid to speak? Because it's not always just like a one-to-one, like speak on stage transaction. It might be something completely different for you, right? I've been speaking for about 20 years. I started off speaking after I won a ton of money to go to college as a C student. Y'all know the story, right? And the very first thing that I got to speak at was I charged $125. I thought I was a mad woman charging that, and I thought nobody would ever pay that. And I learned my first lesson in number psychology from James Amps, who phenomenal speaker, former like military vet, just amazing guy, right? And I got my 10,000 hours, like Malcolm Gladwell says in his book, in the college market, right? And so I learned a lot of these lessons that I'm sharing with you within that. But the first part is, what does speaking and getting paid to speak actually mean for you? And so y'all know I'm a big intentions person. I set intentions before any and everything that I know, so I have clarity and I don't question why I'm doing something. I'm very clear on why I'm doing it. And so, if you are an entrepreneur or a startup founder, getting on more stages gets you in front of true buyers, right? People that can, like, when they say yes, like a transaction happens. There isn't like this long form of all these people that have to say yes. And so getting on more stages and getting paid to speak as a startup founder, because you have transferable skills, right? If you are a tech professional, if you're a career professional, whatever your profession is, you have a level of skill set, you have a lot of knowledge, you have years in the game, you got receipts. A lot of people got receipts longer than a CVS receipt. And when you are either looking for opportunities to get in front of people that can buy your product or your service, then that's something that you definitely want to do. But on the other end of that, as a startup founder, you can use speaker honorariums to raise money for your startup, right? I did that. I have friends that have done that. I have advised startup founders to do that. Like, you can, $10,000 can get you your next hire, right? $20,000 as a keynote can get you your next hire. $2,500 can do a little something too, right? And so also be thinking about that, right? Like, as a startup founder, you can use speaker honorariums to cover your salary in the sense of like, hey, I'm currently bootstrapping or I'm currently raising money, and the funding that we've come in can cover my staff, but I need to be able to keep the lights on too. You can use the speaking circuit in order to be able to do that. And I'd love to see more startup founders doing that, being a little bit more intentional and strategic, and ask for the compensation, right? I think oftentimes people think that it's just words that you're saying, and it's so much deeper than that, right? Any great idea is only a great idea in a vacuum if you cannot communicate those ideas. You think of, what is it? Steve Jobs, right? Apple has built some amazing companies, absolutely, not amazing companies, but amazing products. But if Steve Jobs can get on that stage every year, once a year or twice a year, in that black turtleneck and communicate to you, not like the nuts and the bolts of what they're building, but the value that it brings to you, then people wouldn't be lining up around the block like they used to in order to buy the product. And so he was using speaking, right, and getting on stages to communicate the value of the product, to storytell about the product in order for you to then line up. And what happened? We've seen that company go from a $1 trillion company to a $3 trillion company under Tim Cook's leadership. And like that becomes the value of that, right? So it's not just words, it's being able to communicate vision. It's being able to communicate a methodology. It's being able to communicate like a framework, a process. Sometimes it's being able to communicate trauma that has happened, how you overcome that trauma so that you can be more productive. Like there's so many different things in which you can do. Anyways, so that's thinking through startup founders, right? You can use the honorarium to raise money for your startup. You can use being in those rooms, in a room full of investors, to then be able to raise your money. So you may not get an honorarium, but your ask or your close at the end of that is for them to be able to invest. And if you don't get on that stage and have that undivided attention for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes of people that would not like are in the position to do business with you but do not know that you exist, being able to have their undivided attention for that a set amount of time can like not only like far exceed a speaker honorarium for you, right? Like just be thinking about that. You can give yourself a salary through that, right? And then you can also be able to bring in new users into your platform as a result of that. That is if you're a startup founder, right? And then what if you are like an author or coach or like a consultant? You can use speaking to sell more books and then also generate revenue into your business, and then more than anything be able to build a brand, right? Like there's so many different implications. This is me stuttering on a Tuesdays, right? So many different ways that you can implement your voice, right? Your command of language, to be able to super serve people, and then more than anything, use it to build wealth, right? You're talking about the speaking industry being a $2 trillion industry when you think about not just like conferences and conventions and virtual events. Like this is the process that I use to raise money for the organization that my husband and I built, Black Tech Week, Center for Black Innovation. Even when we were running a food company, I quickly realized like, hey, let me start speaking at more entrepreneurship events, more small business events to raise the profile of our organization, to get people to fully understand that what we were doing, and then be able to speak into a room of people that like were true buyers, not all these random people and you're hoping one or two people will understand what you're saying and want to do business with you. There's a quick way to quantify if the audience is your ideal audience, if they match your target market. Like these are all things that you can do by quickly looking at a conference website, right? Looking at the topics that are going to be presented, looking at who the other speakers that you may potentially want to be able to do business with, and realizing, hey, this is the quickest way for me to get the undivided attention of that person. Let me continue, right? All right. As a podcaster, like if you have a podcast, you can charge for like the live taping of your event on stage or on a virtual stage, right? And so years ago when we were running Black Tech Week, we had partnered with Comcast, NBC Universal. And they came in as a sponsor, and they wanted to do like a live taping of a podcast that they had produced or in partnership or was one of their grantees, I can't remember. And so they paid our conference a sponsorship fee in order to build an event around that. They had the podcaster come in, and then they also compensated the podcaster for doing a live taping. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? And so that was a live taping that's no different than presenting on stage, but like that entrepreneur was compensated for their time, their intellectual property, their thought leadership. We as a conference also receive funding. Like there's so many different and unique ways to be able to do this and to be able to monetize who you are or what you're doing. I think just a lot of people get called to share their message and they discount it And as a result, the event organizers or the meeting planners discount it, right? Those that pay a little attention, and those that pay a lot of attention. And so if you want more respect in your industry as well, remember your pricing is a part of your brand. And so you have to be thinking about that as well. All right, I want to get through like these intentions so I can talk to y'all about like some areas in which you can be extracting, right? If you are, and I'm looking at my notes, that's why I'm peeking over to the side. So if you are a nonprofit organizer, co-founder, executive director, whatever your position is, and you're constantly being called to get on stage just to evangelize for your brand, for your movement, you can use that, and you should be using that as an opportunity to raise significant money for your cause and for your organization, right? Like significantly. That storytelling is in part entertainment, but it is the meat and potatoes of why an event exists. And when you realize that and you reframe that, you're not up there just sharing your words, but you're sharing a transformation. You are making the pathway much easier for someone. But then you're also fully ingraining and engulfing someone into how you do your thing, how you affect change within your community. And there's a way for you to be compensated for that as well. You should be asking for compensation. As an executive for a company, right? This is not entrepreneur related. Now, this is not nonprofit founder related. This is not startup related, but someone who actually works within a company. As an executive for a company, or whatever your position is, internally or externally, this can become the ultimate power move from a branding standpoint, right? And then also being able to give yourself a raise within a company. You use your speaking honorariums to give yourself a raise, to build a platform as a thought leader, and to gain more respect within your organization to help you climb the corporate ladder better, right? And so like, yes, I will make sure I save this. And so is that Whitney? Hey, Whitney Moore. And so as an executive, you can also use speaking, and then your speaking honorariums. Maybe you can only speak on the weekends, right? So like you are a Saturday, Sunday keynote speaker, or you are an evening keynote speaker, the time that you personally have as your own to be able to do what you want to do. Like it is the most interesting, most luxurious side hustle that I think exists for anyone, right? Because there's so many things within that space that you can ask for. And so I'm going to get on that in just a minute, but let me go through these last two, right? If you are jumping ship from Cubicle Nation, right? Like you're leaving your company that you're working for and turning into pink slip. If they still give out pink slips, I don't think they still give out pink slips. And you can package up your leadership. You can package up your technical skills that you have working for that company for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And what you've learned on the job, and then you can use that intellectual property that is yours, that you created, your know-how, your processes, leaving corporate America or transitioning to do something else. And like that gap when you need to be able to just like take care of yourself or catapult it into consulting, which a lot of people do when they've had years in the game, then you take that technical skills and your leadership of being able to do something, like your skin in the game, and then you turn that into a signature talk that you start taking to conferences and charging for. And so when you think about, and then the last one, right, which I kind of hinted on this already, as a consultant or a coach, you use speaking to get in front of new audiences to grow your coaching and your consulting business. And so when you think about like how to get paid and why to get paid, it's in the industry now, it's much less about motivational speakers. You very rarely see people leading with motivational speaker first. It's not that you can't be motivational, and it's not that you shouldn't be motivational, but you got to be solution driven and focused first. Why? Because corporations, companies, conferences, organizations, they have big, weighty problems that need to be solved right now. And they need people to come in and solve those problems for them. They need people to come in and, excite their team, inject leadership ability into their teams, processes, right? We're all currently in this new normal. Everyone has a role to play in designing the new normal, and companies and conferences need structure around that. And so can you provide a different perspective? Can you provide a process? More than anything, you have to ask yourself, like, what problem am I solving? And who am I solving this problem for? And when you can think through that, you can really kind of wrap your talk into something that is a package that makes it very easy for them to understand the value in which you bring into that conference or into that event, right? And when you can do that, then you can really charge. But more than anything, people understand that you can sell tickets. They understand that a massive transformation is going to happen as a result of bringing you in to that conference, to that event, and to that stage. You have to identify the problem that you're solving. And then you take the technical part of that and you then make that a little bit more motivational, right? You make that a little bit more inspirational in tone, but like leadership skills, sales is a big one. Overcoming problems, stress relief, mindset shift. Mindset shift is big in the speaking space, right? And I can go on and on and on of like how many, there's like 100 different topics in which people are looking for speakers to be able to come in and communicators that are able to come in. Why I like preaching about this and then teaching about this so much is because I've understood how transformational it was in my organization. It's transformational now, especially within Black Ambition. That's why we put on so many events. And that's why I speak at so many events, because I constantly need to get in front of true buyers. I constantly need to get in front of strategic partners, constantly need to get in front of new funders, constantly need to get in front of corporate partners. And I have an amazing network, but I constantly want to build upon this network. And I know one of the easiest ways to build respect and power, right? Hacking the know, like, and trust factor. You hear that all the time. And this becomes a way to put yourself on a really big platform in front of people that are in your industry, that can make the power moves, that can drastically change the trajectory of your business and your life by stop hiding, right? I was at a conference yesterday, and Eileen, and I'm forgetting Eileen's last name, but like her talk was about like stop hiding. And y'all know I talk about this on lives all the time. Like, stop hiding. Get in front of the people that you can provide a transformation to, right? At the end of the day, that's what it means to be speaking, is to be sharing, is to be providing a transformation for someone. And so let's talk about nuts and hold on, let me go to questions, because someone asked me a question first, and then I want to talk to you about the 5 different ways that you can be compensated. As a culture shifter, entrepreneur, and investor, how do you believe storytelling and collaboration can harness to drive meaningful change and create a lasting impact? Oh, wow. You're literally answering the question that I had in mind. That's it, right? And so storytelling, and people talk about like finding your story and telling your story all the time, right? My friend Andy Enriquez has a really good framework for why and how you should tell stories when you are sharing your message. Your story is important to you, right? Your story is impactful to you. But if in telling your story, you don't tell people or show people why it's important to them, your story means absolutely nothing. And so like in framing your talk, whether you are doing a keynote, a workshop, or on a panel, you always have to remember what is in it for them. And I know sometimes we hear that when people say, well, what's in it for me? And you feel like they are like the biggest jerk by saying that. It is human nature, right? Time is a limited commodity. I need to know as fast as possible, why should I care? And so knowing what the person's problem is, knowing what the problem is for the people that are in the room, helps you wrap your story into a way that not only do they understand it, but they can apply the solution that you apply to get to where you are currently, to the point where you were up on that stage telling that story. And so Andy's framework is every point must have a story, and every story must have a point. Every point must have a story, and every story must have a point. I'm going to say that one more time, because when I sat through one of Andy's trainings years ago on a free ticket that his wife gave me, that was one of the most transformational things, and it brought such a high level of clarity to me, right? Every point must have a story, and every story must have a point. So if you are going to make a point, it needs to have a story. If you're going to tell a story, please make sure the story actually has a point. Otherwise, why are you telling it? I'm going to say it one more time because it's so important. And thank you. Is it Selena Fountain? Thank you for putting that there. Every point must have a story, and every story must have a point. Do not tell a story that doesn't have a point, because we've all been there when we've been in conversations like, and the person told us, and like, well, what the heck was the point of that story? They should have told you what the point of the story is. And you oftentimes will just say, the point of the story is, just in case a person didn't hear it and didn't grasp it, right? And then if you're giving a point that you really want people to rein home and they fully understand it, you got to tell it in a story. Why? Because the way that we learn language, the way that we learn empathy, the way that we learn language processing goes back to when we were kids. Everything goes back to kids, right? The good in us, the bad in us, all goes back to kids, because when we are born, we don't know anything, right? We don't know anything. We learn everything from our environment. And the way that we learn language, the way that we learn numbers, most of that has been rooted in stories. When you were 4, when you were 5, it's story time, right? When you go to sleep at night with your parents, they were reading you a story. That's how you understood language. That's how you still understand language. And so as a result of that, right, when a point needs to be made, when we are being educated, when we are learning something new, when we're learning a process, or when we need to unlearn something, the easiest way to command attention is to wrap it in a story. And the story has to be able to make sense, right? And you tell people the point of the story. What's up, Joshua? Yo, man, why aren't you in Inner Circle? I'm in Tampa right now. I thought I was going to see your face yesterday. And so that's why storytelling is so important, right? That's why all of Hollywood and all the movies that we watch is routed in storytelling. But most of those stories are actually rooted in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Go find that video. I did something on it quite a few weeks ago, and you'll get a better understanding of the power of stories and how it moves us to do things and not do things, right? That's why that's important. And so if you're going to be a keynote speaker, you got to tell stories. Most of what you do as a keynote speaker is telling stories. Those stories need to have a point, right? Keynote speaker, right? There's a key message that you are going to relay to the room, to the audience, to the stadium or whoever, right? That part is extremely, extremely important. All right. And so that's why storytelling is important. It's important not just if you're on a stage presenting, it's important in pitching, right? Like if you are pitching to someone and you don't start off with a story, then you have lost them, right? Stories bring people in, right? I started off this conversation and I didn't go into the full breadth of the story. I should have, but I do that in my trainings, right? By telling you the story about James Ames. Teaching me about, the first time he brought me in, the first time I got paid to speak. And there's a longer story that I tell about how I learned about number psychology in my 20s. I thought that I was charging an arm and a leg, charging $125 to come in and speak at a conference in front of the youth that were in his mentorship program. James had saw me speak a ton of times, right? I had just won $130,000 as a C student in high school. My mom started bragging to all her friends, all her church friends, and then I started getting bombarded with requests from churches and like all these places to come do workshops on what my process was. And I created like this Scholarship Express applying process at the time. Sounded much more sophisticated than it really was, but people just weren't doing it. And it allowed me to apply for like 50 scholarships at a time every single week. Like I had this like assembly line that was just going, right? Deductive reasoning helped me realize that they all asked for the same thing. So if I had it ready to go, right, all that. And so I just won $130,000 in scholarships. Got asked to do all these workshops, but I wasn't charging because I'm like, charging for information? Like who does that? Everyone does that. Colleges charge us for information. They literally charge us for information, right? The return on the investment is questionable, but they charge us for information. Bookstores, books, podcasts, it's all information sharing, right? Anyways, I submitted this proposal for $125. If you've ever been in one of those situations where you're like sweating bullets to press the send because it's something bigger than you had ever sent before, and mind you, this was 20 years ago when you could fill up your gas tank for $10. I thought I was going to win, right, as a college student. And James called me, and it's one of those calls like, man, I know he's going to say it's too expensive. And it was one of those things where there was like a lot of pauses in the conversation, right? And he's just like, Felecia, this proposal that you sent over to me, ooh. And I was like, I was getting ready to say, I was literally getting ready to say to him, like, I know it's too expensive. And before those words uttered out of my mouth, he's like, Felecia, if I didn't know you and fully understand the power in which you present this information and how life-changing it is going to be for the youth in my program who I care dearly about, I wouldn't hire you because your pricing is so low that it's telling me that you're not going to come in and do a good job. You may not show up at all. You won't be prepared, and you're not going to deliver, and you're going to under-deliver because your pricing is too low. He's like, that is what your pricing says to me. He's like, don't ever send someone a proposal for this low again, given what you have done. You literally won $130,000 in scholarships. You literally defied all the odds of everyone telling you that like students with less than stellar grades will never make it to a college or university, which is what my guidance counselor said to me. And he's like, knowing all that and knowing that you created a process and knowing that you can teach the process, right? Because sometimes we can do things, but we have no idea how to teach things. We don't understand the levels of learning that exist for people, right? And so knowing all of that, and he's like, and you're charging me $125 to share this with 30, like, he was like, do the math, right? Respect your craft more, respect what you have done more, respect your accolades more, and charge accordingly. And I learned that lesson at like 19, 20 years old, right? And so it was upward from there, but it also helped me fully understand that like we think that we can only charge a lot if things are hard. And so when people get on stages and they're sharing their words, but they're sharing, your 4 to 8 to 12 years of college, that goes into that, right? You're sharing, all the lessons learned, all the headaches, all the no's that led to the yes, all the tough conversations that helped you like raise money, like all the processes that you created at the advertising agency that won these accolades. Like, all of this stuff. And you can save people money, but more than anything, you can save them time and frustration and stress and grind. And there is a way to quantify that, right? And more than anything, it's just respecting what you know more. And when you get on these stages and share it with people and you're commanding an audience, knowing that it should and can do something for you. And so deciding what you want that to do for you is really the power of that, right? And so let me go through 5 scenarios with you really quick. And then I saw I had a question here. Okay, I answered that question. Hold on. And then let me drop this link for y'all. And then y'all pop more questions in the chat because my meeting got pushed a little bit. Yeah. While I do this. All right, I'm gonna post that here. Let me pin that because if you want more, we start tomorrow night for that, right? My 3-day challenge. Anyways, I call it the designer bag principle. People see value in a name brand that does the same thing as the no name. People believe they get what they pay for. And Debbie is deeper than that, right? Because number psychology is real. The utility of things oftentimes is the exact same thing. What makes the difference between someone paying for a Birkin bag and a bag at Target, right? What makes the difference between the two things is the marketing. The marketing and the value that is communicated as to where it should land in the marketplace and where it should land in your head and in your heart. That's branding 101, right? And so when you understand that becomes the difference between people idolizing a Birkin bag to the value is $500,000 or however. I don't know how much a Birkin bag. I just know it's up there, right? And the difference between a Louis bag or a Coach bag or like a bag that you just go get at like Target or Walmart. Yes, they all do the same thing. They got straps, they got zippers, they got compartments, and they hold stuff for you, right? But The Psychology of Influence is a phenomenal book that helps you better understand how companies persuade you and influence you to do different things, right? Scarcity, right? Not being accessible to any and everyone allows you to raise the value of who you are and be able to charge more, right? There's a scarcity part of that. There is a theory of reciprocity that's a part of that as well. Once you do something for someone, they're more than likely in that moment, it's human nature that they want to be able to return the favor. And then another really good book is Value-Based Fees by Alan Wise, which is a book that I talked about last week in the Set Your Speaking Fees masterclass that I did. And so I saw someone, there is no replay to that, right? And so if you want to get join the challenge, right? There's 2 tickets to the challenge. There's the general admission, which I made extremely affordable. And then there is the VIP that gets all the VIP bonuses. And so share that because we do a much deeper dive in that. And then I'm not sure if I will or not, just given my time, if I will redo a live masterclass on that same topic next month. But the challenge starts tomorrow. I would jump into that, right? And so, all right. And so let's get into it. And so I created like maybe 12 avatars around this, right? And so, there's like the novice, there's like the person that's building the brand, and you got to figure out where you are in that, right? And so there's a person that's fundraising. And so you have your goal, right? Your intention around why you're doing this. You have your audience, and then you have how you should be looking at compensation. I go through all 12 of the avatars in the challenge and then show people how to make the most and maximize their money in the speaking business by doing so. But I'll go through a few of these today. And so if you are a brand builder, right? Like you are in this mode where you need to build your brand and you want to get in front of like your ideal audience to build your personal brand. And then your audience matters quite a bit, right? You want to get in front of people that have influence and that have budgets. Oftentimes, and I say this because when you're talking about getting paid to speak, your audience matters a lot. And oftentimes people are just like, let me get on any stage possible. And then they don't get the return that they want because there's a misalignment with who you are, your message, and the problem that needs to be solved for the audience that's in the room. How do you understand the problem that needs to be solved for the audience? The easiest thing is looking at the title and the topic and the theme of the conference. It tells you everything. Why? Because the people that are in that room have already made a buying decision based off of their association with the conference, the association of the conference, of the organization itself, the theme, and then like also the topic. And so they're literally, if you go to, you go to Grant Cardone's 10X conference, the people in the audience are literally telling you, what do they want to do? They want to 10X their life, their business, whatever. Like they've literally told you. So now you know, like, hey, does my message resonate with people who want to 10X? Can I help people based off of what I like to speak on, do a quantum leap within their business? Can I help them understand how to do the quantum leap? Can I help them already understand that like they've already in the quantum leap, how to make another quantum, like I'm being a little facetious, but y'all get what I'm saying, right? If you are at, my mentor, Myron, we're in the inner circle. So the next 3 days are the Make More Offers challenge that he's doing. That is the name of the event, Make More Offers. So everyone that has already signed up to be in the audience of that event, what do they want to do? Learn how to make more offers. They want to learn how to make better offers. They want to make strategic offers, like all of those things. And so you don't have to do this big mental jump. Does the audience that will buy my product or buy my service, like, do they need this in order to make more offers? Do they need this in order to make more sales? Do they need this in order to learn how to fundraise better? Clearly, they are missing something or looking for something as it relates to sales. Am I selling what they are buying? Am I selling what they're buying? And if the answer is yes, then that's a stage that you want to be on because it's your true audience. Too many people just speak to speak, and then there's a misalignment. They don't get the applause. They don't get the excitement. And more than anything, they cannot command the compensation that they're asking for, if they are even asking, right? So rule number one is ask. When someone is asking you to speak, and you know your intention is to use it to raise money, to fundraise, to build wealth, to replace your salary, whatever the intention is, if that is your intention, then you cannot say yes to free events. Stop saying yes to free events if that is not your intention, right? Like, in order to get to new levels, you got to replace all the old level stuff. And so you cannot get offended if someone's saying like, hey, can you come speak at this event for free? Like, people are always, and businesses are always going to operate in the best interest of themselves. There's nothing wrong. I mean, as long as they're not malicious, there's nothing wrong with that. It's self-preservation. It's actually responsible for them to always operate in the best interest of themselves. Where we fall short is we got to ask in the best interest of ourselves as well. And if we don't, we end up feeling some kind of way like this person, like, no, they don't know what your intention is. They don't know that, like, you've been speaking for free all over the place and now you need to stop speaking for free, right? Like, and so when they ask you to speak for free or come in, right? I see people do these posts about, like, people say getting exposure. Like, whatever people offer you is one thing. What you say yes to now becomes your personal responsibility. So if you keep saying yes to things that you do not want, you will continue to get things that you do not want, but you played an active role in continuing to say yes to the things that you do not want. Y'all following me on that? And so if you want to start being paid to speak, you have to only entertain things and always ask, right? Like, hey, can you do this event? Who's Lloyd, right? Hey, Lloyd, can you do this event, Lloyd? There's no compensation, right? Or they don't offer it in the initial email. Well, you said, yes, I'm interested in doing it. This is what it costs for me to commit to this. And that's it. They will either take it or leave it, but like, move the emotion out of that. They will either take it or they will leave it. They will take it or they will leave it. And if you communicated the value that you hold in the marketplace, if they realize that you can sell tickets, if they will realize that you can get butts and seats, that you have a message that they will get from nobody else, if they don't have the budget in the moment, oftentimes they will go find the budget, right? That has a lot to do with your branding and your marketing more than anything. And so the first part of that is asking. Like, get in the habit of asking. Get in the habit of telling people what it costs to engage with you. There's nothing wrong with that. People don't get offended. There's actually much more respect as a part of that. Like, hey, I understand the value of my time. I understand that, hey, if I'm traveling to your event, that there's, a day to travel, there's a day to be there, and then there's another day or a few hours in which to return to my home. Like, you can ask. The worst that they can say is no. Some of us are in a season where, you know what, you need to be on as many stages as possible because you need to work through your content, right? You need to work through your transformation. You may be one of those speakers, and I call them the, hold on, let me tell you what I call them, because money on the backend speaker, right? You want to be paid to speak, but you're product based. Or what your intention is to sell as much of your product as possible. A lot of authors do this, right? Some do it not so well, some do it really, really well. But this relates to any product that you have. You may say, you know what? I don't want to speak at, I don't need an honorarium because I need the ability to be able to sell and close my talk with a direct sell to this audience. I know this is the perfect audience for my product or my service. I know this is the perfect audience of early adopters for my app or my technology. This is the perfect audience. It's full of ashy people and I'm selling shea butter, like whatever it is, right? And I will make my money on the back end. So what does that mean? You get up and you do a motivational talk, an inspirational talk. You talk about the why. When you are on stage for 20, 30 minutes, you don't really have the ability to sell the how. You sell the why. The how is all your stuff that you sell on the back end and how you make your money on the back end. You have enough time for a transformational mental change for most people, not the steps on how to do something. That's usually not the formula for that. You usually don't have the time. You cannot teach someone how to ride a bike in 30 minutes, but you can motivate them and excite them and really get them to make a mental shift about what's possible in 30 minutes. So you can help them get on the bike in 30 minutes. You can even give them the tools that they need and let them know that they're going to fall down quite a few times, and give them all the tools that they need to be able to get back up on the bike. But if anyone has trained a young kid how to ride a bike, you're not training them in 30 minutes, right? You can help them understand, putting the training wheels off, and when they get to a point of how to take the training wheels off and continue along, like those are the things that you can do. I've gotten a little sidetracked, but I'm getting to the point where when we talk about compensation, you can do all that as like a money on the back end speaker, which is what I call that avatar. You can do all of that during that. You make your money on the back end of that, right? And so selling to that audience, 1,000 of your shea butters, 1,000 of your anti-aging creams, 1,000 downloads of your apps, 1,000 seats into your program. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And so if you made your money on the front end, you may not be able to sell anything from the stage. But you have a lot of speakers that make, if your speaking fee is $10,000, but the ability to sell directly to 1,000 people in the room, and you close 500 of those people, right? Like that is the massive upswing of being a money on the back end speaker. And so knowing that that is one of the big ways that a lot of speakers make a lot of their money. They don't take the honorarium. They say I want to be able to directly sell for the last 10 minutes of my talk, right? Or the last 5 minutes of my talk. I want to be able to do an altar call and walk people to the back of the room and have them buy my product or sign up for my program, sign up for consulting, sign up for coaching. I've seen friends that have $30,000 coaching programs or 30,000 consulting programs walk away from an event that would have paid them maybe $20,000 to speak, and they cleared that room with $300,000. Because they're good at what they do, right? They're good at what they sell, and then they also quantify the audience to make sure that's an audience that is prime and ripe, that has this problem, and they have the solution. And if they can get in front of that audience for about 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, storytell and plant the why into them, plant some seeds that make them be better decision makers, and help them realize that is a solution to their problem. $300,000 for 30 minutes of speaking and event, that's dope, right? Imagine what you can do with that if you are fundraising for your startup. You don't have to then give equity away because you just raised $300,000. But then not only that, you now have a customer base that you can do your fulfillment onto. It's such an interesting space that I don't think people fully understand the full value of it, especially startup founders, right? Especially people that are working in corporate America. I think we dismiss it oftentimes of just being this ego thing, or let me just share this information, or let me preach to people. No, it's a full-on business strategy, and it's a really lucrative and promising and fulfilling business strategy if you know how to do it the right way. All right, let me go through the other ones. I talked about the fee speaker, right? And so if your goal is to be paid upfront, which is a very fair goal, not a problem, then your audience, you then only say yes and seek events that will pay you. These are mostly keynotes, these are master classes, these are workshops. These are events also, mostly industry events, right? You're looking at industry events, you're looking at associations, stakeholder meetings, annual meetings, corporate retreats, internal corporate events, and conferences, right? Your compensation, and for me as a speaker in my speaking business, this was my sweet spot for a really long time. Because you charge a high enough fee, and then oftentimes you're not able to direct sell, right? So that's different than the money on the back end speaker. Sometimes you get in a position or find an event where you're able to do both. You're getting compensated to speak, and then you also get to sell from the stage. It's becoming much more rare that places and conferences allow you to do both, but I've seen it happen, right? Where they'll pay your honorarium, but then they'll buy 200 copies of your book. That's a double win. I've seen people kind of money on the back end where they say hey, instead of a speaking fee, right, buy 200 copies of my book, buy 500 copies of my book, buy 1,000 copies of the book, and they take their compensation from the margins of the book and it works really well for independent self-published speakers. That may not always work well for those that have publishing deals. I have 2 publishing deals and I don't leverage those books at all because I only make 15%. So it's not financially advantageous for me. And then also my publisher doesn't pay me until 6 months after the sale. So that doesn't make sense for me. My books that are self-published, it makes a lot of sense for me to leverage those. Like, hey, buy 2,000 copies of the book and I will come and speak for free. Why? Because the book cost me maybe $4 to print. We sell those for $20, sell them for $30. I have a workbook that sells for $40. Like that $36 per person margin. Like y'all picking up the math there, right? And like you get to determine that. And so, if you have a workbook that walks people through the transformation that you provide, right? I have like Genius Jam, which is a workbook that helps people move from their zone of no return and low return to their zone of genius, to their zones of impact and zones of opportunity. And it's a workbook that companies buy, right? It's we self-publish it. And so I spoke for the Health Coach Institute last year, and we rebranded the front page to be like, have a special message from the Health Coach Institute. Like you have all these really cool assets that are readily available to you to be able to like level up financially and take advantage of, and more than anything, have a really good impact in the speaking and information space, no matter where you are, no matter if you're working for corporate America, no matter if you're just currently building a brand, no matter if you are on your own and you're looking to just be able to kind of leverage certain things, or even if you're just trying to shore up your bank account, because like we keep hearing about this looming recession. During the pandemic, in the first year to 2 years, like there was a small dip in the speaking space, right? There was a small dip for a few months. Conferences were being canceled left and right. But then what interestingly started to happen, then like there started to be a higher level of value on virtual speaking. And so people were speakers were starting to get their full fee again for like sitting in their room on a Zoom camera and being able to deliver the same transformation. Some speakers, like career speakers, they didn't perform that well virtually. They need to have like the interact and engagement with like a crowd and an audience. Others was just like, man, I can bang out 2 or 3 $25,000 keynotes in an afternoon in my hotel room, in my home, in my studio that I built. Like it was such a fascinating thing that has happened. And I think now we've all kind of gone back to in-person events. All right. And so that was fee speaker. That was money on the back end speaker. And then let's talk, and product maven is kind of the same thing, right? And so I want to sell more of my product or service. Your audience then you can be using speaking to get in front of more high quality customers and clients. I call them true buyers. Get yourself in front of more rooms of true buyers. Stop wasting time with people that only have the authority to say no and absolutely no authority to say yes. Stop it today. And so you have to make sure that you quantify the audience and make sure that they are the right audience, that once they hear you on a platform that has elevated who you are because you are a speaker, and that's what conferences and events do, you are in front of a room, again, of people that have too many times we're in front of rooms of people that only have the authority to say no. They have absolutely no authority to say yes. Stop speaking in those rooms. Stop speaking at those events. It is wasting the audience's time. But then more than anything, it is wasting your time. And we quickly get discouraged and disenchanted about the products and services that we're building with our companies when we constantly are pitching people that are not aligned and are not our true buyers, right? All right, and so you can ask for a fee here, but usually the upside is on the sales from the audience, right? Like you can charge a fee, let's say $2,500, but selling directly to the audience has the potential for $30,000 in sales for people signing up for your program, downloading your app, purchasing your product and your program, right? And then the last one, who I kind of talked about a little bit before, is like the fundraiser. Like I want to get on the radar of investors for my business and or raise money for my organization or nonprofit or cause, right? And so the audience for this definitely matters, right? Would you go speak at like the grandma's knitting convention. No, you wouldn't, right? Not saying that somebody's grandma can't invest or angel invest, but that's not what I'm saying here. You want to make sure that you're very deliberate in seeking events that only are money people events, right? This might be, whatever VC conference. This is probably South by Southwest, although South by Southwest doesn't pay the speakers, but the upswing is like the curated room is oftentimes phenomenal. And I spent years using fundraising at South by Southwest. Maybe it's Aspen Ideas Summit. Maybe it's Clinton Global Initiative. Like, these are some of those rooms that are like power broker rooms, right? Maybe it's Davos. Like, y'all understand what I'm saying? And so find the conferences with the people that, and be very deliberate. Money rooms, right? These are investors. These are donors. These are social impact investors. These are head of philanthropic initiatives. These are head of funds. These are head of family offices. Your goal is to close your talk at these events with a very direct ask. Here's how you can help. We need you to help us solve this problem by doing X, Y, and Z. We are looking to raise blah, blah, blah in order to be able to achieve X, Y, and Z. Is how you close your talk and have a dollar amount in mind that you are trying to raise. Do not get on these stages and get in these rooms with this very ambiguous, like when people, how much money do you need? I need 500,000. How much money do you need? We need $5 million. Like, be very direct and intentional, because it shows that you know what you're doing. And that's a way that you become compensated as a speaker. Your goal is speaking on stages to raise money for your organization, raise money for your company. And so let me know if some of those avatars that I went through were really helpful for you to think about your intention and why you're doing it, right? I go through all 12 of those in the first day of the Monetize Your Genius Challenge, which starts tomorrow night. Shameless plug, but I want to make sure people fully understand what they need to do, right? And so it's Sasha Space. Can you please share the names of the books that you recommended? So the Psychology of Influence by Robert Cialdini, phenomenal book. All his books are good, but that is like my all-time. That's some of my top 5 books that I recommend to anyone. The Psychology of Influence. At some point, I'll do a live. I feel like I did one like last year before. But the Psychology of Influence is going to snatch your edges and snatch you up in ways that I can't even begin to tell you. And one, because it's a relatively quick read. And then if you're an audiobook person, go get the audiobook. I really just get it. Just get it, right? I think it goes to like 5 or 8 different ways that we are influenced to be able to make oftentimes buying decisions, but kind of any decision at all. You want to know all 5. Why I say it's going to snatch your edges, because at first you're going to be a little pissed off, like, man, I can't believe I fell for this, or I can't believe I fell for that. Like when you hear about like the scarcity tactic that companies use in order to make you buy things, right? BOGO deals, FOMO. We all know what FOMO is, a fear of missing out. And companies use this all the time in order to make us buy products. When you realize what is happening to you, it makes you a better consumer that's much more aware to these tactics. And then the other part of that is it then helps you. And then neuro-linguistic processing, which is something like I've started studying over the past few years because I just love the command of language, right? And so that within itself is going to teach you how to, one, be a better communicator, and then more than anything, how to sell more, right? Like if you have something of value that you are selling, that you have created, and you do not know how to sell it, and you are afraid to sell it, and you are hiding, you are doing a bigger disservice to the people that you intended to help. And that is also why I want people to get more on more stages, especially diverse people to get on more stages, because you have a solution to someone's problem. But if you realize that you have a solution to someone's problem and you are not letting people know that you have a solution to the problem, you are hurting on deeper levels more than you are actually helping, because you have the solution to a problem, right? And so, not to like do a drastic like example of this, but if you have the solution to cancer, you've been in the lab, you've created, you have the solution, it's done, right? If someone immediately like takes this shot, takes this injection, or this therapeutic process with you, they will never have cancer, right? Or their cancer will be cured. And you are too afraid to share this message with the masses. What are you doing? you are hurting more than you are helping, because you have the solution to problems that millions of people have had in multiple different forms in which it comes in, and you were too afraid to communicate what you have. That's a problem. That's a massive problem, right? And so, and hey, you may not have the solution to cancer, but you may have the solution to childhood obesity. You may have the solution to a healthy marriage. You may have the solution to help someone sell more of the product that they have that is intended to help people. And so realize the massive responsibility that you have when you do not get on stage, when you do not share, when you are hiding. You hiding is costing not only you financially, but it's costing every single person that cannot have their breakthrough until you show up and communicate that you have the solution to their problem. And stop feeling like sales is sleazy. It's not. It's I have a solution to your problem. It's an energy exchange. And so as a result of that, there's a transfer financially, right, or transactionally needs to happen because people value the things that they pay for. Same thing as a speaker, right? Get accustomed to asking for some sort of compensation, and then you level up from there, because it helps people understand that you have something of value. They respect you more, right? The relationship is cultivated completely differently because there's a transaction, there's an energy transaction that has happened, right? And so that was psychology of influence. And then what are some pointers to getting yourself out there as a speaker? I went through quite a few, right? And so, some of it is finding really cool speaking opportunities that you put in like the marketing bucket, right? Like by speaking at this event, it's going to put me in front of other people that are decision makers within this industry. I have a student that was in one of my programs, and she speaks on mindset and change and things like that. And you need to be in front of as many HR professionals as possible. And those HR conferences, you might just need to fly yourself there if they get you on the stage, because you're going to speak to 300 people that are HR professionals of major corporations all across the United States or all across the world. Wouldn't you want to be in that room? Wouldn't you want them to see you do your thing so that they realize hey, let me bring this person into my company and do their thing and work their magic, because we have retention problems within our corporation. We have a massive attrition problem. And so you always want to look for a few events. Even though I'm a paid speaker and I'm a speaking and training business, there's still about 10 events a year that I'm hey, I'm going to speak at those events because it's going to put me in front of rooms of people that once they hear me, they'll bring me into their company to speak, right? Or they'll, hire our training company to come in and do the training. And then the other part, right, when you're setting intentions, I have two. And then with our work with Black Ambition, most times I'm either evangelizing for the brand when I speak and or fundraising. So that's my intention on that side, right? And so I have events that I speak at specifically around those two, helping people better understand the opportunity when the prize opens up, and then fundraising. So the rooms that I'm looking for are people that can make those kind of decisions about the work that we do and share in the success, and we ride along to solve this massive problem together. And then on the training side of what I do around Genius Jam, right? You taking your core solution to a problem, you package that up with a methodology or a framework, and it now becomes something that you can sell. And the beautiful part about technology now is that you can deliver the talk once, you can put that into a course platform, and if they don't want to bring you in physically, or they don't need to bring you in physically, or you don't physically need to be there, then they can buy seats into that training so anyone can take it at any time. And that's the power of monetizing evergreen content. You have so many different options that exist around that. And so that's one, right? I go through specifically how to find high quality leads within the Monetize Your Genius Challenge. So sign up for the challenge. But there's that, right? So finding, a few key industry or association events specific to your industry that true buyers in your industry exist in that audience, and offer to speak without compensation, right? You can be on the backend speaker if you want to, if you need to get your name out there, if you have not built a brand, that is the quickest way to building a brand. Quickest way to building a brand is getting in front of industry people that now you are on a platform. Now they respect you greater than just being a random person in the room, because now you are on the stage. Your name is being promoted, your face is being promoted, your brand is being promoted by all the conference material. It's the easiest way to quickly build your brand, right? The other thing that you can do is you can hire a VA to scrape the internet for you and find speaking opportunities for you as well, right? It takes a little bit more legwork. You can do it yourself. I think it's, when you think about opportunity cost, it's easier to have a VA do it, right? And then you focus on sending your pitches out and things like that. You can look at some of the speakers that you love, and oftentimes on their websites, they have their calendars on there of these are the events that I speak at. And so if you speak on a similar topic to, say, a Mel Robbins, right? You speak on or Eric Thomas, and they're publicly showing you these are all the conferences that I speak at. I remember Jonathan Sprinkles this is way back in the day when I was speaking in the college market 10, 15 years ago. He would post his entire calendar on his website. I'm oh my God, this is an amazing gift. Why? Because oftentimes if you're booked as a keynote for a conference, it's very rare that they bring you back the next year, right? At least not for the same topic, but you now know what success leaves clues. And so if they've booked Jonathan Sprinkles, right? Phenomenal person, speaker. If they booked Jonathan Sprinkles and I don't know what he speaks on, but say he speaks on leadership, right? Then okay, they'll probably bring someone like Jonathan back the next year. They may not bring Jonathan back the next year. Maybe they'll bring him back 2 years later, right? When they love him and you do a good job. And so now you can pitch to that he has literally told you that this conference is interested in this type of topic and this type of speaker. Success leaves clues. And now you can pitch to that conference, right? And say hey, I saw you had Jonathan Sprinkles last year. I speak on a very similar topic, but these, or I speak in that exact same area of leadership, but these are some topics that I think would be very interesting to your audience. Can we have a talk? Can we have a discussion? And then you can pitch it from there, right? And so follow other speakers, follow where they go, put that stuff into a spreadsheet, and it gives you an opportunity to pitch. And then the other part is buy list, right? There's all these resources that exist that you can buy. eSpeakers is one of them. I have a platform called Easy Speaking Leads. I think that's another one. I mostly only offer it to people that go through my programs. But you can also buy speaking lists as well. You can buy associations lists, right? Associations do annual conferences all the time. The leads are there, and then you can use social media as well, right? And so you can go on Twitter in the search bar and type and call for speakers, and everything that lists as a call for speakers will show up. You can do the exact same thing on Google, call for speakers plus your topic, plus your industry, plus where you want to travel to, and all of those things will come up as well. And then you can also set up Google alerts for conferences, and then knowing what type of things that you want to speak at, right? One of the things that I want to speak at more are retreats, and so I have a Google alert set up for retreats, because why not get paid to speak and then also get a really cool vacation in the summertime out of it? Wouldn't that be cool for you, right? And so knowing your intention as to why you want to speak. The one avatar I didn't speak about is the free-ish avatar, right? And that's someone who primarily speaks, has a good message, right? And a transformation, but you're speaking because you like all the cool perks. You may not necessarily need compensation. Maybe you were a digital nomad, or you're a remote worker and you just want to be able to travel to a ton of countries in the next year. And so you look for speaking opportunities that will pay for your flight and pay for your hotel. And maybe, you have a really good brand name around you. So you will request a first class flight or a business class flight and a 4 or 5 star hotel. These are things that you can ask for as a premium speaker, right? You can ask for it as a novice too. The worst thing that they're going to say is no, but maybe that's your intention as a speaker. Hey, I want my travel to be completely paid for, and I want to travel to these whatever countries throughout the year. Let me look for opportunities to speak in those cities, and that organization will pay for me to travel there. They'll pay for my food. They'll pay for my accommodations. They may pay for a significant other to go. these are the perks of like that industry that can allow you to do some really, really cool and interesting things, but then also meet some really cool and interesting people, because the other speakers are usually phenomenal speakers, and the sponsors are also very phenomenally cool people. And so when you're talking about leveling up your business, leveling up your personal brand, and then what does Omi Bell say? Like building a $1 billion network, not a $1,000 network, not $1 million network, but building a $1 billion network. Like that's who those people are on those stages, other speakers, the sponsors. Like, why wouldn't you want to be in these very highly curated rooms, highly curated environments? The time that you spend in the green room with, like, I remember speaking at the Black Enterprise event in the Bay Area, I think the first year that they did it. And I was in the green room with the chairman of Microsoft for 30 to, I don't know, maybe we were back there for maybe about 30 minutes. Like, y'all picking up what I'm putting down, right? And so like, and that could be the compensation or the leverage or the opportunity that presents itself as well. Maybe you didn't get compensated to speak, and I didn't get, right? Like, but like the 30 minutes in the green room with the chairman of Microsoft, and at the time I was running Black Tech Week and Code Feet, like that was like, I couldn't put a price tag on that. I hope y'all picking up what I'm putting down, right? And so like, this is a strategy that if it isn't a strategy for you, I definitely want you to be thinking about that. I spoke at another conference where, there was like this head of this foundation that I really wanted to partner with the work that we were doing. Could not get this person on the phone, never responded to emails. And like, I got asked to speak at this conference in Fargo, North Dakota, y'all. Fargo, North Dakota, probably one of the most enchanting cities I've ever been to, like hands down, right? And for whatever reason, I ended up being in Fargo, North Dakota twice in 1 year. Never been back in my life. Anyways, the TEDx Fargo, North Dakota, and they did not compensate their speakers, but they're like, we'll fly you up. I promise you'll have the most amazing experience. What can we do for you to make this worth it, was the conversation that we had. And I looked at who the other speakers were. I looked at the sponsors, and I say, if you can get me a meeting with these two sponsors, and I want to meet this very specific speaker. Who did the speaker end up being? The woman that I had been trying to get in contact with, that I wanted our organization to be like grantees of them. And so what happened? We're in Fargo, North Dakota, y'all. Again, it's one of the most enchanting cities, so nobody from Fargo, North Dakota come for me at all. I had such a great experience, but you're talking about maybe 10 to 20 people. They hosted a speaker dinner. I got a chance to have drinks with this person, and where there's really nowhere else for us to go. So like, everyone there that were speakers end up doing business together. We end up getting some significant funding from this person as a result of that. So we had like the speaker dinner the night before, and then the experience in the green room. So that was another intimate place to get to be able to know, right? Hacking the know, like, and trust factor of all of this. And then being able to build a relationship. Then that person got to see me. I saw this person speak on stage. That person then got a chance to see me speak on stage and talk about the work that we were doing. Like, you can't put a price on that, right? And that is the chess move that should be in the arsenal of more people as entrepreneurs, as experts, as innovators, as corporate leaders, please put this in your arsenal. It has been the biggest chess move for me, more than anything, and that's why I love it so much. That's why I've been doing it for 20 years, and that's why I love teaching it to people and teaching the business back end of that, right? And so you know exactly how to leverage it for whatever your business is or whatever career moves that you're trying to make, because it's extremely advantageous for entrepreneurs. But if you were in corporate America, and there's nothing wrong with corporate America, right? Like, also understand how to leverage it for greater opportunities for your upward mobility and in the position that you're in and where you're trying to go. And then how to also leverage it for outsized returns back into your organization as well, right? And back into the companies that you run and the divisions that you run and the teams, and then amplifying your teams to be able to do the exact same thing. We are in the content business. All of us are in the content business, and speaking presents itself as one of those. All right. And so Let me get back to some questions. I have the impression it takes a lot to prepare for getting those gigs. Do you suggest to initially invest in branding and a speaker reel, etc.? Yes. And so if you do not have video of you speaking, it's really hard to be booked. It's even harder to be paid to be paid to book to speak. Say that 5 times fast, right? And so why is that? Because usually the person that is in charge of booking speakers is not the only decision maker. And say you did an event or you were at a conference and you spoke on a panel, spoke on a keynote, and that person saw you, absolutely loved you. And then they go to Google you because they go back to the office or they go to the conference planning meeting and they're raving about you. And then the other person's like, okay, we're ready to vote on who we want to bring in this year for our conference. Can you share the link? And then they go to Google you and they cannot find anything. No matter how, unless this person is the key decision maker, which oftentimes they are not, it makes it extremely hard for them to vouch for you and evangelize for you in that meeting when they need to make a decision if they don't have a way to share you, right? And your message and your command of the stage and how you do X, Y, and Z. And so the video is the first thing that you want to do, right? And ideally, you being on stage and people being able to see you interact with an audience is a sizzle video. They call it sizzle video, right? You cut up a few clips of your thing so people can see. There's a ton of, you look up your favorite speaker, you will find a sizzle video, right? If you cannot, if you do not have an event coming up yet, do this, right? Get on live and share your message. So there's something, and share parts of your keynote. You don't have to, please do not share your whole keynote because that's your secret sauce, right? But you want to have something that makes it very easy for them to book you, right? And so a lot of times what happens when people are just starting out, they make the process extremely hard to book you. People I meet all the time that go through my program, it's just like, I want to speak. I'm like, all right, let me go on their website. I go on the website. There's no speaker page on there. There's no, nothing that shows their topics. There's no video. There's no form where the person can fill in the information and it gets sent to you because they're interested in booking you. Make the process easy. It's an easy process, right? And so make the process easy as possible. And so it's not a lot of things that you got to do all at the same time, but you build upon those things, right? Once you speak at an event, then you get the video, then you add the video. If you don't have it, do some mock videos. Do your own event, right? Go to a co-working space, invite some people to come listen to you speak, record it. Now you got a speaking video that you can work with, right? It doesn't have to be as hard as we're making it. And then once you get the flashy videos with the pyrotechnics and all the people in the background and all the laughs, then you replace that video, right? But until then, I remember having, years ago, in my condo building, they had this theater, and I needed to put a video together of this new talk that I was speaking on because they didn't want to book me for the old talk. I literally set up a camera like this, and I recorded my talk, and I was doing the hand motions like somebody was in the audience because I didn't have a video around that one specific topic, and I knew that they needed that in order for the committee to be able to make the decision. It's not cheating. You literally are showing what you can do. And speaking has so much of it is emotional before it's a logic, that you want people to have an emotional connection to you about bringing you in, and then also connect on how you're going to move their teams forward, solve the problem for their company, solve the problem for their community. And so, all right, let me answer a few more questions and then I got to jump off. How to find, I went through, Verzo, I imagine you asked this question, before, but I went through where to find some conferences. Someone said, preach, I feel called out. What are your thoughts on speaker reels? Do we need one to start? You need one. And you probably need a few if you have a few different topics that you speak on. You probably need a few. You don't need a ton, but maybe if you speak on 3 different topics, you want a speaker reel or a sample of your talk on each one of the things that you speak on. You want to build a body of work, right? You want to build a body of work. You want people to like fall in love with you. Like that's how you build the know, like, and trust factor of building like a personal brand that you leverage for speaking opportunities, that you leverage for consulting opportunities, that you leverage to grow your startup, right? If you were in the jewelry business, what jewelry conferences are you speaking about? Maybe you have a very specific innovation within that space that you can help move them along. Maybe it's a very antiquated industry. Like you should be the go-to person that they think about for every jewelry conference. And then you use that to raise money for your jewelry business, because you can take your speaking fees and then like put that into your startup, or put that into buying more product, or putting it into your next hire. Like there's so many different ways that you need to be thinking about this, but knowing that there's at least 5, if not more, different ways that you can be compensated. And then on the other end of that, say you decide to do an event that there isn't compensation, right? They just do not have the budget, but you say, you know what, I need to be in front of this audience, or I want to be in front of this audience. Maybe I want to pour into them. Well, what are some of the other things that you can ask for? You can ask for, of course, the travel that I talked about, right? You can put these things in your rider. You can ask for travel, certain level of flight, right, status. You can ask for certain level of hotel. You can ask for introductions to specific people that are speaking, or sponsors, or government officials, or special guests that they're bringing. Maybe you can ask for a breakout room, right, that they provide, and you do a follow-up session from your keynote or your workshop for a very specific audience, in which you can then market and sell your thing directly. Like I've seen speakers do that before. You can ask, a lot of times conferences have media partners, and so maybe they can't compensate you, but maybe their media partner is like Bloomberg or CNN, or like the local Fox News, or like whatever, right? And you can say like, hey, I would like to be considered, or I'd like to be the person that does the media interview on behalf of the conference. Or you show this snippet, or you do this mention. Like you can ask for that. Like I got featured on MSNBC by speaking at a conference once, and got to talk about our organization for like a 4 or 5 minute segment. Like that was well worth whatever the compensation was going to be. And it wasn't something that they could pay me, but like you ask for these things to make it worth it for you, or you say no, right? They put out newsletters, they put out social media posts. Like, can you promote my book? Can you promote our app? Can you promote my business in the newsletter that you send out? You can take your old blog posts, right, that may be relevant to the topic that you're going to speak on, because conferences and events are always looking for content in the road leading up to their event. And that's a way for you to get much more followers, much more readers, much more eyeballs onto your blog or your written content. Like there's so many different things that you can do. You can host ask them to host a pre-dinner or like a post-dinner, and that allows you some time with maybe some of the special guests that are coming to the event. So maybe they can't pay you, but they have a dinner that they were planning, and you share a few words or share a few message or have a direct sell to that room as a result of that. Maybe there's a lunch, like, maybe maybe they don't have a budget line item for honorariums, but they can buy your product, right? And that's not just like books and CD. Do people still do CDs? I don't know, right? But maybe that's your lotion. Maybe that's I always talk about your shea butter, right? Maybe it's your shaving cream. Maybe it's your t-shirts. Maybe you're a t-shirt designer or you're a fashion designer, and they can't compensate you, but they've budget for promotional items, and they'll buy 100 units, 500 units, 1,000, like your yo-yo, like y'all picking up, y'all follow me, right? Like there's all these different ways for you to also still win, if that is the strategy. The biggest point is knowing why you want to speak, what you want it to do for you, and how you want to be compensated, and the levels in which you want to be compensated, and then kind of like the line that you will not cross, right? And so you're always evaluating an opportunity that comes to you in a multitude of ways, right? Like Can they pay my fee? All right. Can they pay my fee? Yes. And then can they meet my other needs? Then yes. Then easy yes, right? Can they pay my fee? Maybe they cannot pay my fee, but like this is an audience that I really want to get in front of. And so like let me say yes to this, but then these are the things that I want. I want, social promotion. I want them to buy like 500 units of my product, and then I'll come and I'll present in front of this room. Like, is there someone very specific on the program that I want a meeting with, and I know when I close that meeting, it's going to turn into a few $1 million within my organization or company, and so I'll say yes because of this. And so you can put those parameters in place. I go through that in the third day of the challenge, the last day of the challenge, of how you make things advantageous to you based upon, right, and moving forward and enhancing like the financial goals of where you're trying to go with your business or your career. So I think that was the last question, y'all. Let's see. All right. I answered that one from Modern Mogul HQ. I love that name. I like that. All right. And so y'all understand why I, now host the challenge, right? And now doing it almost once a month now, in the evenings once a month. And then more than anything, why I'm constantly kind of pushing people in that direction, because I literally use speaking to raise millions of dollars for all my companies and organizations over the years, right? And I really fully understood the utility and the opportunity that it presents itself. And then more than anything, also have a key message that has key points that provide a transformation for people in which to be able to do something and give them to something, and then having a clear ask in return, right? And so if anything that you work on over this summer, over the years to come, is commanding language and becoming a much better communicator, like a much better communicator. Remember, being a communicator puts you at the two highest levels of value. The first level is imagination, right? Those that come up with the ideas. And then being able to communicate the ideas is the second highest level of value. And so can a YouTube video series substitute for a speaker reel? So it can, but like speaker reels are short, usually a minute, 2 minutes. I've seen some as far as 3 minutes. I don't necessarily recommend them being that long, but it's almost like, think of it like, like a funnel, right? Like click funnels, right? The reason those funnel websites exist is like they want to funnel people into making one decision. And so your YouTube series can serve as like the back or additional content, but you want a sizzle video for the exclusive and like linear focus of booking you to speak. And so you only want it to showcase like your storytelling ability, right? You want it to be punchy. You want to have some sound bites in there. You may even want to have I really recommend if you can grab some testimonials that are part of that as well. And then that way people know exactly what you do, like why you do it, what you have the potential to come in and do for their organization. And then going back to the Psychology of Influence book by Robert Cialdini, then you want some social proofing components into that as well, which is testimonial. Someone saying like, oh my God, like I heard like Lou speak and Lou was absolutely amazing. Like I came in here thinking one thing and like they dismantled all the things and like now I'm like set on my pathway and my yellow brick road to success, right? Like you want a few of those sound bites in there as well. And if you can't have those on your video or you haven't captured those yet, then you want to have some sort of testimonials on your speaking page so that they know it's social proofing, right? When someone else does it, then I'm more than likely to do it as well. The example that Robert Cialdini gives in his book or in his blog is, you ever like pass by a restaurant or a cafe or something like on your way from home to work like a million times, and you may have seen it, but you never wanted to stop in there. And then one day you pass by and there's a line wrapped around the building. Often 9 times out of 10, we end up stopping. Why? Nothing has changed about that. But the fact that someone else validated as like it's a decision makes you feel like, man, it's worth going to check out, because it's almost like, the first person in, or with investing, like the first money in makes it easier. Someone else took the risk, and that someone else being in that line validated. And so that's what testimonials do, right? It helps you make the logical decision to do business with someone, because it's showing that like they've imparted, they've impacted, they've done business with someone else, and it's showing in video form or written form what that person has said about them, right? That's why they're so powerful. All right, and so that's what you want to think of. And then also look up, the best thing to do is look up other people speaking reels. And I'm going to give you something that I talk about in my challenge, but go to Fiverr. Like, Fiverr is like, it's worth its weight in gold, right? Nothing on there is $5 anymore, but like you can find some really good editors on Fiverr in the early stages, right? I think once you get up in your career, you want something very, very polished. You're gonna want to hire like a local editor that you can sit down and really kind of go through your content, that can do some really special things with it. But Fiverr will go a long way for you. All right. Let's see. I love that. It's like manifesting what's to come. This is something that I needed because I'm a public speaker, but I have no idea how to get paid for it. The easiest way to get paid for public speaking is to literally just start charging for it and get in the mode of saying, this is what it costs in order for me to come and deliver my message on your stage. Find a dollar amount that is comfortable with you. I think a really good starting point for most people, and again, this is about knowing whatever your experience, what your experience is $1,000. That's a very good starting point. $1,000 for me to come out and do it. It's a phenomenal starting point. And then you go upwards from that. Again, this is giving very blanketed information about fees, but I've seen people charge, $2,500 for a 30-minute keynote, $5,000 for a 30-minute workshop, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for 40, 50, like Bill Clinton charges $500,000 for a 30-minute keynote, right? I think what's his name? Les Brown is at $100,000 to $150,000. Like, I have seen all the fees under the sun, right? I've grown my fees significantly as well over the years because I know what I can produce and I know what I can do, right? And when you have clarity on that, then you get a better level of comfort charging for the transformation. But then also when you go from that being a side hustle to turning it into a business, then you also realize that there are costs associated with it. It is not just getting on stage and saying words. It's the most irresponsible way to honor this craft and honor this transformation. When your teacher gets in front of you and when you were in elementary, middle, and high school, they were being compensated to disseminate information, to synthesize information and share it with you so that you can go on and then do great things. They are in a form of this industry as well. When a lawyer takes all their legal know-how and they deliver a message, like they are operating in the two highest levels of value, right? Like they're communicators. They're taking information and they're communicating it. You were taking information. What did I say? Information. Taking information. That means I've been on this Zoom, this live for far too long. I'm stumbling over words. And so when you can synthesize information, when you understand the 4 levels of learning of how people receive information, but then more than anything, how they go from information to action, then you are a badass communicator that can command absolute top dollar. And so learning how to communicate, learning how to put that into a process, because companies and conferences buy processes, they buy frameworks, they buy steps. They want to know how to get from X, Y, from A to B to Z. Like when you learn that, and then look at other speakers, right? Go on bureau websites and see what people in the same industry and space and same speaking topic speak on, and what they charge and what their range is. And then again, success leaves clues. So follow others. Y'all follow me. I'm a speaker. I've been doing it for years, right? And then from time to time, I teach it in the form of a challenge or getting on live to be able to answer some questions. And so, yes, I will save this video. I have a struggling friend who needs to hear that you are amazing. All right, so perfect. I will save it so that, hey, Jessica, I joined late. What are some of the main points that were touched on? I just went through all of them again, Devon, and so I will save the video so that you can have it and you can watch it and then you can share it. Can't wait for the challenge tomorrow. Dina, is it Dina? All right. It's always so weird on Instagram because you're like, you know, everything's together. So I'm like, where does the first name end and the second name, the last name begin? So forgive me if I chop that up. And you went through some Googling examples of finding conferences, but when starting out, how do you know it's the right conference with the right audience? And so go back and watch the maybe 20, 30 minutes into this video. I go through that, right? And so the main, you have to do target market, like clarity work yourself of knowing who your actual target market is. And then once you know that, you know their behaviors, you can, you kind of have a good understanding of who their audience, what their pain points. The biggest thing is their pain points, right? And the problems that they currently have that they're looking for solutions, and you become that solution. And so the theme of the conference, the topic of the conference, the organization or the company that's putting on the conference, all give you the clues that you need to make a decision on if that's a conference that you should be speaking at or not. And then once you realize and read, and that's the easiest thing that you can do, right? Read the topic, okay, who's putting on the conference? Is that an audience that I want to be in front of? What's the topic? What's the theme of the conference, right? Because you can have an organization that does, like, you can have a Girl Scouts does conferences, right? And they may have conferences for their senior leaders. They may have conferences for the girls, right? So they are doing conferences across the board, new chapter leaders conferences, right? And so the organization might be the right one, but the conference that they're doing at a specific time of the year may not align with who your audience is, right? Like, I don't speak at youth events primarily as far as my training business, because my training does not necessarily make sense or land well in the process that we created for kids. Can I speak to kids? Absolutely. I did it for a long time. I got 2 of them, right? But my program that I train corporations are for a very specific audience at a very specific point in their life, right? And so knowing that, 9 times out of 10, I won't say yes to a youth event because that's not the core audience. But like, if my heart is called to it, I'll say yes to a youth event all day long. If my daughter wants me to come speak at something at her school or one of her organizations, but I'm not delivering like my keynote at that event because, right? And so know that, right? And understand that, and that helps you better decide. Like, and then your message has to align with the problem, because if not, their problem is so big, right? The problem is so big that they won't hear and receive and take action on anything that you do if you do not align your solution to their problem. All right, and so, okay, this was very informative. Thank you so much. All right, and so, Leah, is the access to the Facebook group only for 7 days? So the challenge it's a 3-day challenge, right? It's not a course in the sense that you have lifetime access to a course, right? I have courses. The challenge is designed for you to make massive action in 3 days, right? And so the challenge Facebook group is a way for everyone that is in the challenge to, meet each other, communicate with each other, post your homework, maybe potentially do business together. And so after the 3-day challenge is over, we close the challenge page because it's not intended to be up forever. And then we launch a new page, and the next month we do a next challenge. Like, that's the way the process works. And so if you are looking to make massive action, right, or really kind of commit to making one big action around this, and you are stuck and you need clarity, you need a bit of processing, and you need a bit of accountability, then the challenge model is for you. We go through some serious content and some deep content in 3 days. It is not one of those things where it's designed to then sell you something else. Like, it is I am teaching, right? And so we went through the surface of some of this stuff today. We go through the groundwork, right? And the foundation, and then building up from there over the next 3 days. And so the Facebook group for the challenge is only meant for the 3 days of the challenge. We keep it up a little bit longer. So it's open for about 7 days, right? Why? Because people go from program to program to program, from analysis paralysis to paralysis to paralysis. And we think that taking a course is the work. No, learn the things and then you got to implement. Learn the things and you got to implement. That's the only way things move forward, right? It's the only way you have the impact and the income that you want to have in this space or any other space, right? And so I could have made the challenge 30 days, but it would not be advantageous to you and you would not take action. You would think showing up to the class every day would be action. That's not action. That is not action, right? Learn what you need to learn and then implement and apply. Learn what you need to learn and implement and apply, right? And I, as someone that teaches people, right? We can spend years in this cycle that feels like this very safe bubble because I'm learning something. But if you do not apply, you do not get the things that you want. So you have to apply and you have to implement. And so, like there's acquisition of knowledge and there's applied knowledge, right? And we have to shrink that time as much as possible of how our learning process. You want to learn, you want to acquire skills. I'm a lifelong learner, I will tell you that. But I am very clear and intentional when I teach about getting you the information as fast as possible and then making sure that you implement as fast as possible. That's also my mental process, right? I learn as fast as I possibly can. I acquire the knowledge as fast as possible. And then I have to commit. And if I don't see a clear path in which I'm going to implement something, I cannot do it. And you should not do it, right? And so you have a lot of people, a lot of mechanisms, a lot of books, a lot of programs. Like, stop doing that. Implementation is your goal. Implementation is your goal. Implementation is your goal, right? And so I'm on a soapbox now. I probably snap somebody's edges around that. And so, all right, y'all. And so jump over to the challenge, monetizeyourgeniuschallenge.com. Sign up. There's 2 options. I have enjoyed this time. I've gone way over, but my meeting is going to start in literally 1 minute. And so I got to go. I love speaking and teaching. Amazing IG Live today. Very valuable. Take care, y'all. All right. Talk to y'all later. And like I said, I will get this saved. Someone said, are there scholarships? No, there's no scholarships. There's 2 options. Right? If you do not pay to be a part of learning processes, we do not value it, right? And so if you want the free knowledge, that is what IGs are for. That is what my Instagram, my YouTube is for. I need people that are serious about implementation. And so if you are not serious, right, or it's not affordable for you right now, then apply what you've learned here. But I need people that are going to show up all 3 days. I need people that are going to do the work, and I need people that are going to have commitment and transformation. It is very hard to teach people that do not have a personal level of buy-in into a program, right? They don't have a personal level of, they don't have a personal, skin in the game, right? And so you have to have a level of skin in the game. And quite honestly, the process in which we go through to find the money to pay for a program is a mental process within itself that helps us charge. And so if we are unwilling to pay, right, if we're unwilling to spend, people are unwilling to pay us. And so we have to understand like that process within ourselves. The challenge is very affordable compared to my other programs, extremely affordable. I want to get the information and the training to as many people as possible, but there has to be a level of skin in the game. And that's a mental process I had to learn, right? But it's something else that I want to impart on everyone as well. We are committed to the things that we pay for. We are not committed to the things that we do not pay for. There isn't a level of a process or a transformation that happens as a result of that. And so I went through a lot of information, probably a little bit more than I should. I dived into some of the stuff in the challenge. And so for those that cannot afford to pay for the challenge in this moment, go back and watch and rewatch and apply the information that I shared in this I keep wanting to call it Zoom, but in this live, because if you apply this stuff, like, then you will not need a scholarship into the next challenge. You will not need a scholarship into the next challenge. Like, apply this stuff that I taught you today in this live, and you will be good to go, and I will see you in the next challenge. All right, y'all, I gotta go. Take care. Bye.